What is good, everybody? Welcome back to the O Show podcast, episode 383, presented by Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale, Arizona, in the heart of Scottsdale, AZ. Mayweather Boxing and Fitness is an inclusive, high-intensity fitness experience developed by the champ Floyd Money Mayweather himself. It's opening up later on this summer. Head on down to Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale, Arizona. Again, this is episode 383 of the podcast with our guest via Zoom right now, via satellite, I should say, Miss Jessica Abercrombie, newly CEO and founder of Abercrombie Agency. How are you doing today, Jessica?
Doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's just such a delight to be here with you.
Thank you so much. So why the urge to start your own agency? Obviously, a ton of experience, over a decade experience worth in PR, marketing, building your brand. Why the inspiration to build your own agency now?
Sure. Great question. So, I was actually in hospitality at the beginning of the pandemic. I was the director of comms with global hospitality company and had a terrific career trajectory going. And then COVID hit, like so many folks, who kind of had a bit of a change in their lifelong trajectory, whether that be professional, personal, or a collection of the both.
Yep.
So with that, I took the opportunity. I don't do terribly well with idle time. So I took the opportunity to see, okay, perhaps I can try my hand at, contracting here, something there. And it just kind of flourished into a full-fledged agency, which I couldn't be more thrilled and sitting in a space of gratitude. But the impetus was really, truly just, okay, I've got these lemons. Let me try to make just some incredible lemonade if possible, and truly couldn't be more grateful of what has come thus far.
Wow. And you went to Cronkite, right, at ASU?
You're exactly correct. Yep. So I studied journalism. I actually had only one PR class and I hated it. I thought it was stupid and ridiculous. I loved my journalism track. I had every intention to become an editor. And then I worked with publicists all the time and I found that they storytell as well, which is the piece I was so drawn to on the editorial side. And I made the switch and have never turned back.
Wow. So what was your initial aspiration going into school at Cronkite?
I to this day, I still have a Vogue library in my house. So I've been reading Vogues and collecting Vogues ever since I was very little. I always loved storytelling. I was an avid reader. I was the kid that did not care about cartoons on Saturday morning. I cracked open a book and would be reading. So I'm admittedly totally a nerd to this day. Definitely a bibliophile, but that's really what kind of inspired. I loved storytelling. And then as I got older, I really loved storytelling on behalf of others. So I love being able to really kind of use my skills and tools to be able to really kind of help others. So there was this beneficiary piece that was really fulfilling to me. So I had my eyes set on Vogue. I was going to tell great stories on behalf of Vogue and be able to leverage that. So I went to New York. I was with Esquire magazine. Yep. So same storytelling, just through the lens of kind of more male-focused content, and then made the switch into PR.
Was it, sports related or just naturally like anything entertainment wise?
All of the above. Yep. So it was sports, entertainment, culture, really, fashion style. I was in the fashion closet as well. So worked with tons of amazing athletes for their cover shoots. And it was so fun. It was really great stuff. But again, even with that allure, I was kind of like, I feel like I want to see what the publicists are doing.
Right. 100%. So what kind of, obviously 4 years at Cronkite, things change, your mind evolves, you want something different. What was it that kind of, sparked your interest in other things? Just obviously developing your mind, growing your mind to do other things?
You're exactly correct. Yeah. And I think for most of us, once you experience something, you touch, try, feel for yourself, your perception now is kind of a bit different, and or you have this more holistic view of something. So most of us, when we're young, our vision is so narrow for what we think we want, given our experiences are narrow. It's totally normal. So as like most people, as I started experiencing more, I could kind of refine what it was that I wanted, and also being introduced to, I didn't even know that could be a job, or I could do that full time. It's like when you're a kid, you're like, okay, do I want to be a lawyer or a cop, or your perception is so limited. So as I kind of moved through the professional space, I was able to hone and kind of refine what it is that I wanted.
So with what you're doing right now, obviously you've taken the past 5 to 10 years worth of experiences, and now you're going to mold that into your own agency and providing stuff for clients, or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. What experiences have you taken away from, whether it be public relations or marketing or branding into what you're trying to do now and what you're trying to accomplish now?
Sure, I love that. Such a thoughtful inquiry. For me, it was really important I've always been very heartfelt and heart-led in everything I do, and there isn't always kind of a space for that, if you will, in this corporate infrastructure. So I have all agency background, then I was in-house doing corporate communications, and there isn't so much a space for that celebrated, sadly. And so that was really kind of one of my key takeaways is this concept of, for me, I've always been taught, I was a coach's daughter. My dad was a football coach. So I've always had this athlete mentality, this kind of altruism and everything that I do, and seeing that there is this greater goal we're all working toward to achieve. But there's a lot of, laying your heart on the line for things to achieve said goals. And so that was something that I really wanted to kind of pull through, not only personally, but professionally as well. So that's something that with my company, having this sense of heart-led, heartfelt, that is celebrated. It's not something that, is looked down upon or is a weakness. It's really actually a strength and something in which we really infuse into all of our efforts on behalf of our clients. And in our way, that's how we're indeed making the world a better place. And that is really at the crux of our mission, which sounds kind of silly, right? It's like, okay, this one little person trying to make the world a better place, but that's where it starts. So right. That's really for us.
You
really
plant one seed and then it grows, right?
You're exactly correct. Exactly.
What level did your dad coach football?
Collegiate level. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, so okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He's on the defensive side. Yep. So he was defensive coordinator, would work, special teams too a little bit, and then would do kind of position coaching also.
What school?
So he was locally here in Arizona, and then he was also Glendale Community College was where he was at most recently. Sorry, I had to jog my memory there.
Wow. I mean, obviously growing up in a sports family, I heard that you were a Lebron James fanatic as well. Big basketball person.
Oh, yes. Yeah. These finals have been hard on me, but story of LeBron's life. It's like, I'm used to it now. I've been through this with him so many times that I'm like, okay, we lost another championship. All right.
Yeah. He's got, he has 4 rings, right? I think he's doing all right.
Yeah.
They're still the defending champions as of today. So you still have that going for you.
You're exactly correct. Yeah. It's not easy being a LeBron fan, but again, I'm loyal to a fault. So I've been with LeBron since he was at St. Vincent St. Mary's in high school, and it's been a long tenure. It's my longest relationship. Yep.
Wow. So that was always the funny thing about, either basketball at the college or NBA level as a fan. People always followed players and not teams. It took me forever to kind of figure that out. I grew up a giant baseball fan, growing up in New Jersey, a huge New York Yankee fan. And then I have all of these guys who are like, wherever LeBron went, whether it be Miami, back to Cleveland, LA, it's just like you're just a bandwagoner, right? There were people who were like with Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook or any one of these guys, James Harden. It's like wherever they went, you went. And I never really understood that. But I guess like the player and the brand too, watching, MMA and UFC as well, like you're a fan of a person, not necessarily a team.
Yeah, it's a really good point of differentiation, especially in athleticism, right? Because there's such this like team mentality in everything. So for fans to start following players, like I really think that evolved, in like the Jordan era for basketball specifically, where like people started latching onto players individually, and then to your point, following them around, which is so different than some other sports. And given it's a team environment, it is surprising where you're like, wait, what? You're totally abandoning the team?
And you being, Arizona through and through, I would think you'd be a Phoenix Suns fan and be excited about the NBA Finals this year, given it's like the first time since, 93, since they've been in it. And it looks like they could win it, fingers crossed they win tonight. They're up 3-1, but you never really know. But I'm kind of stunned that you're not, excited about this as most Phoenix people are.
I know, even I'm stunned, or even I'm feeling guilty. But truly, I'm so loyal in my allegiance to LeBron. And they took him out first round, so I'm like, okay, well, I wish them good. Of course, I'm very happy for them. And honestly, I think I'm the only person on the planet who doesn't care for Steve Kerr, but I did not like his general management decisions with the Suns when I was, back in the day when I was really a diehard Suns fan before LeBron was even on the scene. So ever since then, I just had like a sour taste in my mouth for the Suns, unfortunately. And admittedly, I think I'm literally the only person that doesn't like Steve Kerr.
Wow. You might be right. He's a pretty stand-up guy.
No,
he's still
coach.
He's a great coach, and they give him credit for, a roster that had Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and, Andre Iguodala and all these guys that made the team who it was, but everybody still credited the head coach, which you rarely see in the NBA these days.
Totally. No, you're exactly correct. And he was brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I mean, what he's done with the Warriors franchise is really incredible. And he really has been a terrific head coach. As a general manager, I personally just have different feelings that he traded some players back in the Suns days that I just did not align with. And ever since then, it was, I went a different direction.
Well, I'm glad we could confirm your basketball fandom because we found, obviously, we were talking before we went live about, the team that you played for. I think we found your stats as well. Big Ol' Buckets was the name of the team. And then one of our graphics guys made that like very quickly before we jumped on.
It's amazing. I love it so much. I know I was sharing with you earlier that I'm like a professional rec league player, which is not a title that anyone wants.
But rec's so fun. Title. Like, obviously at this age, maybe not so much, but back in the day as a kid, like I lived for rec baseball and rec basketball, right?
Yeah, I love it. Even as an adult, I love it. It's great when you're playing with other adults who are like, okay, I have a whole career. I know I'm not trying to be a professional athlete, but like we're all super competitive and still want to play. Yeah,
100%. Do we have her stats? We found those, right? Hank and Zach. We want to pull those up real quick. I don't know if they were good or bad, but obviously the rec stats.
I don't remember. So go ahead, embarrass me if it is. No problem.
We'll see if we can pull that up. But yeah, rec days, like to me, I still have like all of my old rec home run baseballs somewhere lodged underneath my bed in my home in New Jersey. Because it was just like,
did you play?
I was in rec, everything. Everything. Right? I mean, when I got older, I mean, that was the best part about rec. You could be anything you want. Nobody really cares. Like the competition isn't as fierce as anything else.
Right.
No, that's great. Here we go.
There you go.
So do you want to elaborate on these stats? Is this good or bad? Again, I'm a baseball guy.
Yeah, these are subpar at best. This was like not a great season, but that's okay. That's all right. I'll give myself a pass.
What site is this? If this is a rec league, how can we find your stats?
So this is, I'm actually surprised those are still public, but LA Sportsnet is like the biggest rec league in all of Los Angeles. Yeah. So it's super fun. It's really great, but it's pretty high caliber level of play, I will say, in my own defense. But that said, they post all of their stats. They keep everything public information. It's great, but that just like enhances the level of competitiveness because truly like we can all be traded or things of that nature. It just kind of, amplifies that type of environment where you're like, oh my gosh, look at that player. Look what they did. Okay, I need to beat their stats. Where are they at? So it's awesome.
It's more of a competitive rec league for people who want to compete, which is awesome. So how often does, sports intertwine with what you're doing right now with your agency when it comes to like brands and clients, coming to you and wanting to accomplish what they want to accomplish?
Sure. Day to day, it's really all of the time, like the internal piece in terms of being able to identify who was an athlete and who wasn't. It is abundantly obvious upon just like one connection point. You can tell like, okay, I know their mentality by way of knowing that they were an athlete or not, and or if they were a single sport player or if they played multiple sports. And then on top of that, if they were a single athlete or a team athlete. So that in the day-to-day, like that truly, I'm so grateful for the lessons I learned through athletics. And then overall too, those with whom I work, I find that mentality of an athlete is just a little different than the average person. So that's really kind of day-to-day. And then by way of my clients, we are specializing in the luxury space. So athletes, entertainment, that is all playing in the same circle of luxury, being able to really kind of tap into that influential market. So fortunately, I personally have had the opportunity to work with quite a few athletes, which is always really just, kind of personally gratifying for me. And then on behalf of our clients, really ensuring that we're aligning with, athletes and kind of influencers within their own rights within the athletic space, ensuring that our clients kind of have the opportunity to leverage that through their brand portfolios as well.
And you know how to connect with your clients because, sports aside, working in PR and marketing for as many years as you have, like you pick up on things. You know how not necessarily how people's brains work, but how, like, which way they're going. Like when they come to you with a specific project or what they want to do, you're able to pick up on things and be like, okay, here's where their mindset is. Here's what we're able to accomplish.
Totally. Yep. It's so synonymous. I mean, what you're doing on the field or court, when you're doing that in a professional setting, I mean, a lot of it really translates, right? And to your point, there's this kind of like psyche around what we do, especially in PR and marketing, given our job is to influence people, our job is to influence consumers. So it's very important to really kind of have this analytical side, but infused with the psychology and psychosis of just humans, and how do you connect with them, how do you kind of ingratiate yourselves to them to get the goal that you're after, and kind of playing that delicate dance, but same as it is on the field or on the court as well.
So what has your experience been like, again, learning public relations? Because it has completely changed probably since from where you started at Cronkite, early days, at Esquire, moving to New York for a few months, to now in 2021. It's a completely different ballgame, right?
Totally.
I'm going to assume.
Yeah, no, you're exactly correct. It absolutely is. The industry has evolved rather quite a bit. Two big kind of moments, I think, in the industry was the inception and introduction of influencers. So this concept of someone having social influence, and then that relaying into conversion and being a real kind of business tactic to drive revenue, lead generation, things that would be of importance to our clients. So that was kind of a big critical piece that continues to evolve, right? It's really kind of now its own sub-industry, if you will. So that was a big differentiator. I mean, influencers wasn't even a thing when I was studying this discipline. And then another critical piece was really the shift in media. So as you know, given the space in which you work as well, there's, all this paid opportunity that wasn't out there before, or just wasn't a part of kind of the systematic makeup of X respective kind of media outlet. It was always there, but just not at the forefront. But given the consumer landscape changing with media, so much being digital, loss of a lot of print, that, calls the opportunity up for additional revenue streams. So now publicists aren't just fighting against other publicists, we're fighting against marketers too, which our agency is also marketers. So we kind of have the opportunity to blend those two things. But that was another big kind of shift in the industry that has been very challenging to navigate, but
Right.
We always love a good challenge.
What was like the number one source of, revenue when it came to entertainment, whether it was like blogs or, obviously television? Because podcasts weren't huge 10 years ago. They were around, but they weren't necessarily the number one thing like they are now.
Right. Yeah. The mediums have shifted so much, right? Like television was huge. So was radio. I mean, like 10 years ago, television was still creme de la creme, top of the pile. Radio before that was that was its heyday. And those have kind of trickled out. Everyone's cord cutting, everyone's streaming. And now folks, instead of listening to traditional radio, they're listening to podcasts, to your point. So the mediums have really shifted. But we're looking at a lot of new mediums, such as podcasts, and really looking at opportunities in that space, to your point, kind of the more brand owned content. So for example, a blog, things of that nature. It's really interesting too, though, but forever in a day, I think endorsements will still be bread and butter, especially within the entertainment space.
Was Abercrombie agency something that you had planned for a long time, or was it something just kind of off the cuff, like it's time to work for myself? I've taken all of these experiences. Now I know what to do with them.
Absolutely the latter. I would love to say that I had this beautiful business plan, 2-year, 5-year. Absolutely not. No.
Yeah.
I've kind of been flying by the seat of my pants. But to your point, with all of the kind of, interesting just experiences and then learnings gleaned throughout the duration of my career to this point. And it's really, I was just telling a girlfriend of mine, I was like, being a CEO really isn't as hard as it seems. I mean,
Right.
You think you have this like built up kind of idea of what that is, and it's really not that difficult. It takes a high level of commitment, but in terms of executing, it's really not too far out of, I think, anyone's wheelhouse, really.
I mean, you really just got to organize your schedule at the end of the day, right?
Yes, you have to be. Mm-hmm.
Are there like specific ways that you do that, balancing out your time in order to accomplish everything that you have on your plate? Because there's probably a ton of stuff, whether it be clients or just daily things that you got to do to take care of yourself too.
It's endless. So that is the one drawback about being a CEO, or just being at the helm of any, kind of entity, is you don't have a day off. There is no time where you can truly be off, because at the end of the day, the buck stops at you, right?
Yep.
So even with with your associates and employees, whether it's with your clients, in my space, media and marketers, there's just no day off. So to your point, I have to be very judicious and mindful of my own boundaries within myself to say, like, okay, I have to set this time aside for yoga or the things that recenter me,
Right.
and then honoring that. And that is probably one of the most difficult things, because when you're so passionate about what you're doing, it's so easy to get lost in it and not be able to kind of pull yourself back out.
Oh, I'm 100%. Like whether it be fitness, eating right, some of those like core things that kind of keep you going mentally. Like for me, it's like an hour in the gym in the morning. If I don't get that, it's kind of like someone with like their morning coffee. I feel like
Mhm.
that's like the most generic way to get that analogy across. But like if someone doesn't have their morning coffee, the rest of their day is just off balanced, off center, right?
So true. Yep. And I think it's so easy, especially in my field. I'm sure yours as well, where you, because it's 24/7, you feel like you always have to be on, and it's hard to turn it off, especially to your point when you care about it so much. But it's like you have to center yourself with your coffee, with your hour in the gym,
Right,
whatever it is.
exactly.
Totally agree.
So, what was like your number one dream or goal, aspiration when it came to whether it be writing out of school or, developing into PR or marketing or what you're trying to accomplish with the agency now? Like, what was your big why back in the day before, things kind of evolved?
Yeah, as a kid, I didn't have as much kind of control over things as I wanted. I also felt like I was voiceless at times when I really wanted to have a voice. And then as I kind of, grew into my career, I found there were many times that as a female, being especially when I was in the corporate space, in male dominated spaces, I also kind of had those feelings kind of arise again of like, man, I really feel like I don't have much control over this situation. Wow, I really feel like I don't have a voice. And it was really important to me to really kind of infuse that into my company and make sure that in my way, I could change the world and be able to create that space for people, whether it be for my associates or for the clients with whom we work, the brands with whom we work, and then really ensuring that by way of my agency, I could align myself and my team respectively against clients who really reflected our mission and our ethos as an agency, and then being selective and discerning about the clients with whom we work to make sure we're not furthering any mission that we don't personally feel passionate about.
What was like the biggest lesson you learned from either a mistake you made or something that just like did not benefit you or anything that you were doing personally, professionally? Like, what was the biggest lesson you think you've learned that you've taken into account when starting this agency?
I love that. One lesson my dad instilled in me from being very little and having that team mentality, right, coming from a coach's perspective, is to not be above anything. So to always have humility in
Yeah.
everything that I do. And I really have found that that has served me quite well and also gives so much added value to what you're bringing to the table professionally when someone finds you to be indispensable because you yourself view yourself as indispensable. I mean, that just really tees you up for success in kind of any trajectory I think any of us would like to follow. But it all comes back to that sense of humility and being able to say, you know what, I'm not above anything at any level. And I think my team resonates with that a whole lot, that while I have this title of CEO, I'm not above anything. I'm right there with
Right.
them, happy to be by their side. And that mentality, I think, has been quite helpful.
Did you have this mentality from the beginning, or were there moments that kind of taught you like this is how it's got to be? Because if it's not, I'm just going to drive myself insane.
Good question. No, I've always kind of been that way. I think the areas where I've scraped my knees in times past is actually just not having the confidence. So
Yeah.
kind of like, when you're going between two things and you choose the wrong one, but like in your gut, you knew it was the other thing.
Right.
That's something that but I think that's something very common, especially with professional women. We question ourselves a lot and want to make sure we're always doing not just the right thing, but the perfect thing. So I think once I started kind of taking that sense of perfectionism out of everything I'm doing and really standing and owning my confidence in what I can do, that was really helpful. And that's when it's like you take it to the next level, which is really common with athletes too. It's like
Oh yeah.
you're your own worst enemy, critic, barrier. And once you remove that, it's like sky's the limit.
I mean, at the same time, like I feel like the biggest issue people have with themselves is putting way too much pressure on themselves to succeed. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, you're a CEO, you're a founder now, you have employees, you have clients to deal with. I feel like that pressure can both be a good thing and a bad thing. How do you balance that type of pressure now that you're dealing with all of this stuff?
Super thoughtful question. Again, you're great. I really just try to make sure that through my associates, I'm being really mindful of their health and happiness. That's really been helpful for me to know and have the confidence around, okay, I'm doing the absolute best I can to make sure that this incredible group of women is empowered and they're celebrated, and that at the end of the day makes me feel really fulfilled.
Yeah.
So that kind of removes a little bit of that sense of, because to your point, there is a lot of pressure. I mean, these are people's livelihoods. These are, I'm literally supplying these people with the funds by which they can live their life. Like there's a lot of pressure around that. If we have a business snafu, that doesn't just impact me, that goes well beyond me and residually impacts my associates as well. But knowing that I have kind of teed them up to be in that space of empowerment and in that space of their own confidence, I think is what kind of helps me take a little bit of the pressure off, because I think about, okay, well, in a sticky situation, they will have the tools they need. Yeah. And that's the best I can do.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to hire the best employees that can take care of themselves, and at the same time, know if they need to come to you, they will.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's so worth it. We were hiring for this one role literally for 6 months, but we just recently filled the position. The gal we hired is incredible. And it's like dating. Like you don't just like date for cheap love. You know what I mean? Like you want to go after the person that's really going to be, powerful. And that's exactly the caliber we kind of pull through at our agency as well.
So what's like the biggest, I guess project per se that you'd want to work on with the new agency with your team?
Sure. So one of our clients is moving forth with a campaign that celebrates science, which sounds like kind of silly, but when you unpack it, you're like, oh my God, that's so powerful. Yeah. That's incredible. So it's essentially kind of the Get Out the Vote campaign, but through the lens of science. So really just empowering the nation to lean into kind of this notion of fact-driven narratives that can really kind of celebrate the wins of science, especially against the backdrop of the pandemic and COVID, and really being mindful around what that looks like. So that's been a terrific campaign to work on, things of that nature, where we really have the opportunity to, in a big way, drive social change. Like, oh my gosh, you can't pay me enough to make me excited about that.
Wow. I mean, that would be very interesting. And obviously you take into factor all the other interests that you probably have, whether it be sports or things like of that nature. Like you got to be pumped about some of the possibilities that could be in your future, because you never really know who's going to walk through that door and ask for help.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly correct. Yeah. And with that campaign, I mean, we blindly pitched Michelle Obama and Jessica Alba and Ariana Huffington, and they were like, yes, tell me more. This is great. And so that's where you're like, oh my gosh, this is like, I'm on a campaign that Michelle Obama has interest in. Like, what? In what world? Yeah. This is amazing.
Was there any specific person? I mean, you mentioned Michelle Obama, but was there any specific person that you'd like to work with?
I think you know the answer to that.
Yeah.
It's LeBron James, hands down. LBJ, hands down.
Do you think you can make that happen? And if so, hypothetically, what do you think he'd come to you for?
Oh gosh, no, he needs a bigger fish than me. I know he does. I would just, oh gosh, I could be on I would be on his daughter Zuri's campaign and I would be happy. Like I wouldn't care, just to be, I would work for Savannah, his wife, and be like so happy. But no, I think the intersectionality of PR and sports is so important in how athletes use their kind of influence and power for, good or bad, whatever direction. So that would be like, if I was LeBron in another life, if I was LeBron's publicist, I think I would just end my life like the happiest person ever.
I mean, you want to power through though and get through that, right? Like you'd want to be able to be his publicist for like a decade, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like a tenured publicist for LeBron James would be just amazing. Yeah.
And that would only grow your brand more. I mean, that's like one of the highest paid people in all of America. It's like him and Conor McGregor, like 1 and 2, right?
Truly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So the last thing I want to leave you with, I don't want to take too much of your time, but what's like the number one mission and vision you have with Abercrombie Agency? What you want to, again, tell the audience listening to the show of what you guys are about and what you're trying to accomplish at the end of the day and what you're willing to provide for people?
Sure. So, given we're a company that was founded in the pandemic, I think if we can really kind of instill this sense of, again, I know I mentioned empowerment, but truly the sense of empowerment for anyone, whatever your vision is, whatever your mission is, like step outside that sense of security, step outside the kind of hierarchies that we all live in that just feel comfortable and truly believe in yourself, lean into yourself and explore that. And it's not going to be perfect. It's going to be, with scrapes on your knees. It's going to be with tears and blood and all those kinds kinds of things, but that's living, right? That's
Right.
life. That gets you out of your sense of security and into a space of continued growth, which I think all of us can really benefit from and enjoy. And that's really what we would love to just impart in the world, really that sense of empowerment, and working with brands and, anyone that's out there listening, being able to just understand that you can literally do anything you want. You can change the world any way you would like to, whatever impact you want to have. But that's entirely possible, even in a pandemic when the whole world is not open to that.
Right. And everyone was put on this planet to be different. Everybody's got different DNA. Everybody's got different goals, ambitions, niches, everything. Everybody's got something different about them, and you got to bring that to the table as opposed to, shying away from it and hiding it, sweeping it under the rug, which some people do at a young age. You learn later on in life, like that's your superpower. That's what's going to get you to where you want to be.
I love that. That's your superpower. Yep. You said it so poignantly. I love that.
Well, Jessica, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. Hopefully one day we can meet up. We could, collaborate on some stuff. This was episode 383 of the podcast. We are presented by Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in Scottsdale, Arizona. Be on the lookout for them. Get your membership now, opening up this summer. Jessica, thanks again. This was episode 383. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much.